Welcome to episode 16 of the AvgeeksAssemble Podcast. I'm Andrew, and once again, I'm your host this week. In this episode, for the first ever time, we have two special guests joining us to talk all things photography and aviation. So before we carry on, as always, we must emphasize again that our opinions are entirely our own, and that also goes for any of our guests either today or in any future episodes. But now that's out of the way, it's time for our guests to join us on this flight. We're still not quite sure on the final destination, but we'll see where it goes. For today, we are very honoured to have with us Colonel Tucker Cinco Hamilton and Lockheed photographer Chad Belay. How are you, chaps?
Doing great.
We're doing good.
Good, nice one. An absolute honour to have you both on, by the way, so thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, like I say, an absolute pleasure. I've been looking forward to this one, of course. So obviously we'll get into that later on, obviously with my bias of my favourite fast jet, but we'll get into that in a bit later on. But yeah, thank you for joining us. So obviously feel free, whoever goes first, but can you just tell us a bit about yourselves and how you sort of got into aviation then? Feel free, whoever wants to start.
Go ahead, Cinco.
Yeah, thanks, Snap. Appreciate it, buddy. I have been a pilot in the Air Force for pretty much my entire career, nearly 18 years of flying. And I kind of got into aviation on a whim. I never really planned on being a pilot, but I didn't know what else I was going to do in the Air Force. I knew I wanted to serve. So right before graduating college, I wasn't eligible to fly, but they told me there was a waiver for my eye condition. I got a waiver. I got a pilot slot like 2 months before graduating. And I went to pilot training. I almost quit pilot training numerous times because I actually thought it was kind of boring, right? Which is crazy to me.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was amazing. But when it came to like a lifetime of flying from point A to point B, I felt like I wanted something more. My wife convinced me to stick with it, and I'm so glad she did. Because then when I started flying, the F-15C is what I began flying, single seat air-to-air fighter. I just loved it. I loved interfacing with the technology. I loved being in a formation with other aircraft. And it just came full circle. And I definitely have loved an aviation career. But I kind of got in on it, not expecting to, right? Not having this dream to do so. And I am so thankful that it turned out the way it did.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was one of those where obviously you continued on that path and the rest is history, as they say. Chad, obviously yourself, obviously aviation and also photography as well. How did you sort of get into both of those sides of things?
For myself, for photography, it was in high school, kind of wanted to do something that allowed me to travel. And, I grew up as a military brat out at Edwards. So I've always been around aviation at that point. Went to school, went to, photography is commercial photography and then a fine art photography. How I got involved into aviation is really much kind of just a luck of the draw. It was not what I wanted to do after I got out of college. But struggled as a commercial photographer and then kind of did a full circle back to the Antelope Valley. And I applied for a job out at Edwards in the base photo lab, started working out there. And then next thing I know, I was like, I want to fly in the back seat. And with about a year or so, they spun me up training. And here we are almost 11 plus years later. I've been doing it since then. And just been lucky, to be honest with you. It was definitely not a path that I had set for doing, and just everything kind of lined up perfectly. And, I've been fortunate to be doing this for the length of time that I have been doing it, and kind of just have enjoyed the ride since then.
It's funny because obviously with what you both do, the impression I just got from both of you there is neither of you had this in mind, what you do now. It's almost like a series of events and things like that has happened to get you here that you weren't planning on doing, and here you are in these these situations. I think that's amazing. So sorry, go on.
Oh, I was gonna say, because as a kid, like as an Air Force brat, I was like, I did want to be a pilot. I wanted to be a special ops guy. I wanted to be a fireman. I was told I was too short to be a pilot. So I was like, all right, well, that's kind of out of the question. And then, coming around and meeting pilots at my same height once I got in here, I'm like, I could have been a pilot. Like, what the hell? So, but I got better of the best still. I can take pictures, do my job, and also get stick time every now and then for free. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that is cool. No,
yeah, Andrew, I mean, one thing I mentioned to your listeners, it's just a great example. Like, you don't need to have it figured out, right? So often we think like we need to have this whole plan of how things are going to unfold, and that's not true at all, right? Like, you're going to go through life, and I think sometimes life's going to throw you some curves. Sometimes they're going to be amazing opportunities. Sometimes it's going to feel like failures, right? Like a turn down a dark path. But in the end, I think if you keep your head up and you keep focused about like who you are as a person and pursuing that, like, you'll find yourself in amazing opportunities that you didn't imagine.
That's it. And I think obviously what comes with that as well is keeping an open mind, being open to experiences. And to be fair, obviously you said that, did you say it was your wife that said to continue on that path?
Yeah.
There you go. Maybe listen to those around you as well, but obviously trust your instincts sometimes. And like I say, you could end up in a place you could never imagine, but it could be better than what you were previously looking for anyway. So that's an amazing message. I couldn't agree more.
I can add too, that was before I got in this, I actually got out of photography for about 2 years, and it was more of just out of frustration, and it wasn't getting where I thought I wanted to be at the time, and took a different path for about 2 years, and that just ended up not being fun and enjoyable for myself. And then full path coming down here, got back into photography, and pretty much, as I mentioned, got a job back into it and spun up all the skill sets and everything again, and just pushed forward and pushing up to this point where I'm at today in my life, and has made a living doing aviation photography, both on the side and for Lockheed, has been absolutely extraordinary and awesome.
And obviously, with that being said, like you say, you took that break away from it to try something else. Again, there is never, sometimes people are scared to do so. They're scared to they're like, this is what I know, this is what I'm good at, maybe I should stick to it. Sometimes you try something else. Maybe it won't work out. Maybe you do have to go back to other thing. But unless you give it a go, sometimes you don't know. And like you say, 9 times out of 10, it can work out. As long as you've got the right support and things like that around you and the correct mindset, you don't know what you could achieve, So that's really good. Really nice insights there. But thank you both. Appreciate the introductions. We've just got a little bit of housekeeping to attend to before we carry on. So as we've mentioned previously, an audio only version of the podcast is also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just search for AvgeeksAssemble and it should pop up, and you can listen to us on there. If there are any other platforms you would like us to join, let us know through DM on Instagram or Facebook. And we'd love it if you could share the podcast wherever you consume it with your friends and groups on social media, especially if you think it's something that they will enjoy, which who wouldn't enjoy this, I say. But so that's our little bit of housekeeping done. So chaps, what we're going to do, obviously it's a little bit different this time because there's only myself and 2 guests. We usually like to do a little icebreaker. So the one we're going to do today is a rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you, so just for example, I'm going to say tea or coffee, and then we'll see if both of you answer the same thing or answer differently. And it just gives us a little insight into the things you like. So you both happy with that?
Sounds good.
Cool. Right. Let's have a little right. Tell you what, let's start with that one. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Oh, okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
That was okay. Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Okay. Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Okay, I can see why you both get along. Music or podcast?
Music.
Yeah, music.
Yeah. iOS or Android?
iOS.
I would say iOS.
There's a little bit of a hesitation there.
Well, I've never bought in the 15 years. I've never had my personal phone. So everything that's been handed to me by a company has been an Apple phone. So
Right. Okay.
Gotta go with what's given to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Health food or junk food?
Health food. Yeah, I want to say health food, but it's probably like junk food.
Yeah. Look, you guys, you can be as honest as you want on here. Restaurant or nightclub?
Restaurant.
A restaurant.
Yeah. Running or cycling?
Running.
Cycling.
Okay. Adventure vacation or relaxing vacation?
Adventure.
Yeah, I could go either
both.
way.
Yeah.
I like to do tourist vacations.
Okay.
That's usually relaxing, but it's also not like rock climbing.
Yeah. So you do like some excursions and things like that, as opposed to scaling mountains and stuff. Yeah, fair enough. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. By myself, I'd say adventure. With the family, try to relax.
Yeah.
Best you can.
Definitely. Yeah. F35 or F22?
Oh.
This is easy for me. I'm waiting for Chad to answer.
I would say F35, to be honest with you. The F22 is okay, but the F35 is way better.
Oh, nice. See, I love that answer, and we're going to get a few nibbles on that. I'll tell you that much for free, because the amount of times that it's come up in conversation with people and I've gone, no, F35 over everything. I almost get, in a funny way, I get abused for that one. They're like, F22 this or that. And I'm like, no, F22 can't hover like that. So,
yeah.
Well, I'd say if I were dogfighting, like F22 in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Okay, that's a nice diplomatic answer. I like that. So this one I'm not sure, because it depends how many you've been to. So air show or a base visit?
I probably do air show. I go to so many bases. They don't really do anything for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the air show, you get a little bit more from an air show.
Yeah.
I think, yep.
I mean, do you... Is it quite a big... This might be a silly question, considering I'm on Instagram and I see all these things anyway, but from your guys' perspective, do you see a lot of the people at bases photographing there, like doing base visits and seeing that? Do you see a lot of that, or is it not really?
Not... Well, one, it's not allowed. I mean, unless it's an open air show, an open platform. Other than daily operations, if you're not certified to shoot on the base, then you're only going to be able to see a small amount of people who are assigned to document flight activities on any given day.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough. Oh, right.
I mean, at least where I've been and the bases that have been to and have worked on, it's you either get authorized or you're not authorized. I mean, unlike Nellis, where they have, outside the gate line, they have, I've heard, just tail spotters, and they just sit there all day. It's, the thing that can go in and out. Edwards, I would say if you got caught doing that, you would definitely be in trouble for sure.
Well, okay. All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Props or jets?
Jets,
yeah.
Yeah. Coke or Pepsi?
Neither.
Pepsi.
Neither. Okay. TV or book?
Book.
I'd have to go with TV.
Cinema or theatre?
Cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah, cinema.
Yep. Yeah. Winter or summer?
Really depends. Summer in Edwards is miserable.
Yeah,
it's hotter than heck right now outside. So, yeah.
I grew up in the Rockies. I'd say winter. I like winter.
Okay. It's funny because it's technically meant to be summer here at the moment, but we live in the UK, so it's currently very grey and sort of mid temperatures. We're waking up in the morning and needing jumpers at the moment, which is really annoying, but that's the UK for you. Beer or spirits?
beer?
Neither.
Okay.
No, I'm so boring. I basically just drink water. I've had tea before. I've never had coffee in my life, and I've never had alcohol.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
I don't drink soda either. I'm so boring.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. No. To be fair, nothing wrong with that. So this one's probably leaning more towards Chad, but obviously with the camera side of things, Canon, Nikon, or Sony.
I don't really have any loyalty to either three.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, I currently shoot Canon because, again, that's what is provided to me. So,
right.
But I mean, I've shot Nikon. I shot Nikon in school, and I've shot a few Sonys. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I mean, you just put a camera in my hand. It's a camera. It's a tool. I'll figure out how to use it.
I like that. You know? Cinco, have you had much experience with cameras at all, or do you just prefer being on the other side of the lens?
Well, no, I do not have. My mom was a professional photographer. Okay. And I was actually at Eglin Air Force Base. I was the test photography flight commander. So I was in charge of the photogs.
Okay.
But they don't trust me with any of that. You don't want me taking anyone's picture.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, nice one. Cheers for that, guys. So that was our little rapid fire icebreaker questions. So we always get some interesting questions and answers on that one. I do like that. In actual fact, I quite liked it with two guests because I've got Chad on top of my screen and I've got Cinco at the bottom. And every time I'm asking the questions, it's the reactions. It's like, who's going to break first? Who's going to answer first? I quite like that. Right. So now, obviously, we've got some questions now that have got a little bit more meat on their bones. So these are questions that we've got, and also ones that we've asked through our group, and that we've asked online. That we've tried getting questions for you. So, Cinco, the first one is for yourself. And the question was, what is the favorite aircraft that you've ever had the opportunity to fly?
Well, as with so many answers, like it totally depends. Yeah. I really enjoyed in test pilot school. So in test pilot school, they're teaching us how to fly things for the first time.
Okay.
And so you go through the year and you learn to fly like 30 different aircraft.
Oh, wow.
And to certain degrees, like some you get cleared to solo in, so you're the only pilot. Oftentimes you're with an instructor, but you do all the flying. They're just there to just make sure that you're not going to kill yourself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I'd say I enjoyed flying the Black Hawk the most. So learning to fly helicopters is so different for a fighter pilot that it was really a lot of fun. It was a challenge and fun. And I would not want to be a helicopter pilot like all the time, but I really enjoyed that experience. Just being able to fly, like they taught us how, to be safe in it. But then the Black Hawk is actually quite intuitive and fairly easy to fly compared to a lot of other helicopters.
Yeah.
So we were like, out in Patuxent River. That's where we learned to fly at the Naval Air Station there. But you're, dropped into like a river bed and there's trees alongside you and you're just kind of, flipping around. You feel like you have a lot of control. So it's just such a cool experience that I definitely enjoyed that probably the most out of all the different things I got to fly at TPS. And that includes like A-10 is probably a close second. That was amazing to fly and shot the gun on that and dropped some bombs. Really neat experience.
No.
So yeah, both of those are kind of my top two.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously with that being said, so what, because the A-10, it just looks, in a good way, it just looks like a lump. It just looks like something that shouldn't fly. What's it like to fly, handling-wise and things like that? Is it?
No, it's simple. And that's the beauty of that whole machine.
Yeah.
Is it makes it so the pilot can focus on what's really important, which is what's going on underneath them. It's the same with the gun mech. The gun mech is amazing. It's super easy, right? Like if I want to shack the target in, like, say, an Eagle, it takes, or a Viper, it takes some time getting used to, how to fly the line correctly, when to pull the trigger, where to put the pipper so that the bullets go where you want to. In the A-10, they made a system that One, you got, humongous bullets, so that helps. You got a lot of them, but it makes it really easy and simple, and you're going slower, which really helps.
Right.
So I'd say in general, flying the aircraft is not complicated, which is exactly what you want, because what is complicated is making all those life and death decisions.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. That's what you want your pilot focused on, not, like handling, the beast.
Yeah, of course. Okay, that's cool. That's really interesting. Chad, over to yourself now. So what is your dream aircraft to photograph and why?
I would have to say the F14 Tomcat. And then for me, it was, I grew up, with the Top, I was introduced to the 14 as a Top Gun, that Top Gun movie, that was like, that was the bad plane back then. And then, just the wing swept configuration that it's able to do, and just the different configurations that you could actually capture that, and just the size of it and the mass of it.
Yeah.
I think that would be a pretty memorable photo shoot if I was able to chase one of those ever.
Yeah.
There really was a spark. I was at an air show, very young, not a photographer at the time, and it was out at Edwards, and they were building, it was at sunset, and there was this F14 Tomcat. It was right at sunset, kind of right at dusk, and it took off an afterburner. And I remember listening to it, and it was so loud, and it was across the ramp, and Cinco knows, because I'm on the main ramp, and it's, it's good, 4 football fields in length in the distance. And I remember it taking off in an afterburner, and I'm watching that thing, and I'm feeling it rumble my chest from that distance, and it rotated. And I remember watching the burners hit the ground and go up that way. And I was taken back. I'm like, that. And it was at the same time a Top Gun too. So it all just combined. I'm like, that is a cool aircraft. And I think just the way it looks, and like I said, the wing swept for configuration, just like the B1, there's such a slick aircraft to chase. So I would say 14 Tomcat would be my choice.
And a very good choice at that, I think. To be fair, I think that's one of those aircraft that I don't think I've ever even seen static, but it's got such a history behind it. And obviously the obvious behind it is Top Gun as well. But it's just one of those that I think if you haven't seen it, you want to see it. The dream would be to see it fly. Whether we get that opportunity in the future, probably not, but I'd love to even just see one static, because like you say, it's quite a physical presence by the looks of things, and it's a very impressive looking aircraft.
It's very intimidating, and it's iconic to a certain generation period too, when you see it, like you can relate to, like, I know where that's from, kind of thing. So, and I'd say my second would be like probably the F-117 would be the second choice. Because any angle on that it's such a different aircraft. It looks so different.
Yeah.
Which I've chased before, but it's still a cool jet.
Yeah. Cinco, have you, obviously continuing on from what Chad has just said, have you ever had any experiences with F-14s at all, or?
No, I have not. It's familiar with it, and I've seen it in person, like in a museum. Just an amazing beast of an aircraft. It really helped bridge the gap between our Vietnam era fighters and the F-15 and the F-18, F-16, right? It was kind of in between them. And so I think it really established, it's like all these fighters were all stair steps to each other, right? So it established a foundation that was so strong that allowed us to have, the fighters that we still fly today. Yeah,
definitely. Oh, that's cool. So this is a question for both of you, but you might have different answers. So what's your most memorable experience of working together?
Oh, do you want to go, Cinco, or do you want me to go?
You can go first, man. You can go first. It may be the same one.
was looking at that question and I was thinking, there's so many. There's so many. And the one thing that really came to mind was it wasn't an aerial chase. It was actually a ground shoot that we did. And it was for a year in review video project that we do every year. And it was the AF1 hangar interview that I did with Cinco in this hangar. And what made it so memorable was we had a AF1 in the hangar. It was at night. I lit it up and was interviewing him for the video, and he forgot what sparked it, but he ended up taking his 461st patch off, and he did this dialogue that I could not have asked or even thought about. I couldn't have asked him to do it, any better. I mean, I think it was a very spontaneous, emotional moment that I've never seen ever in my life of doing interviews of any of the commanders that I've done in the years that I've been doing this. And I mean, it gives me chills just thinking about it right now, because I mean, from my perspective, what I was seeing and hearing was it was breathtaking, and the background, it was an unbelievable moment for me. And that was really the truth, like a moment that I saw, like a commander that was so passionate in everything that he did up to that point was just, it was, I don't even know the word to look for, but it was something that it was a great moment to me, to be honest with you.
That's amazing.
That would be my most memorable experience with Cinco. Again, we've had a lot. Trust me.
Yeah, of course.
Cinco and I have. I think I've had more interaction with Cinco than I've had any other commander in my time out here. So I think that's one that really stuck with me.
I was about to say, by the sounds of things, that stuck out. Like, that's one, almost as though you didn't need to think about it. Like, that was the first thing that came to mind hearing and seeing that question.
Yeah. And I don't think I even had a question. It was just, he just went to town, and it was just like, don't stop recording. And it was gold. It was absolutely gold, to be honest with you. It gives me chills every time I do watch the video. It's like, man, that was unbelievably beautiful.
I mean, what was, obviously, forgive me if you can't answer the question, but what was it an interview about as such? Is that something we can talk about, or?
No, yeah, that's fine. So we do a year in review video. We've been doing a year in review video for like the past decade, and just like, it's a recap of what the program has done out at Edwards, and the testing and stuff like that. So, and every year is different. Some years we interview the commander, some years we don't. We get a narrative, we write up a script as best we can, and we try to show what we can throughout the year that we've tested. And I think this year, with 2017, it was an anniversary for, I think, the program, maybe Cinco.
Yeah, it was the 75th anniversary for the squadron.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, and it was, so that it really meant a lot to do this video and really show the highlight of where the program, the squadron has really come from back when it was a bomber squadron up into what it was to that day. And just everybody who makes the program for what it is, and all the drive and sweat and that they do, and just to get the assets up and test them, and so we can get what we can and pass that on to the operational test and get it out to the field and partners and so forth. So there's a lot of emotion into that interview that I felt.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to joke and say I don't remember what you're talking about, Chad.
I know you do.
I don't remember. I don't know. No, but I totally remember, because we had a great relationship, and the photogs are extremely important for the mission what we're doing, because first and foremost, they collect data, like extremely necessary flight test data is captured by cameras. And a lot of time those cameras are in a chase aircraft, beyond that though, they're the great communicators, right? Yeah. Through their medium, they are communicating what the squadron is doing. They're communicating the performance of the aircraft. They are providing senior leaders information, usually through some type of media, format, to allow them to make certain decisions, or they're communicating to the public, like what's going on. I think it's very important that our entire free world, right? Because especially with the F-35, needs to know the truth about the F-35. And one way to do that is to show them the truth about the F-35 through video. And that's what, the team does, because everyone deserves to hear that, right?
Yeah.
It's costing all of us so much money. Like we should know why this is the preeminent fighter of the 21st century. Yeah. And that's one thing the photogs bring to it. And I remember that shoot for sure. I was fairly new as a commander, and we were celebrating like a thing. And Chad would always set up these amazing shoots where, one was like, there's like smoke machines going off, and it was, it was all like, we would do it like after hours at night and light up the hangar in a certain way. And Chad probably doesn't remember all the specifics, because a lot of that was his direction. It was us working with each other and him being like, I think it was like I grabbed a patch off my shoulder and I started talking about the fabric that like created this this patch, and how that represents the fabric and the different aspects of the unit over the years, and how we've created something very important. And I'm not doing that justice, but it was really like the direction that that Chad and the atmosphere that he provided to allow me to communicate that. Yeah. And in general, there are many instances where he just was like a maestro of not just the photog, but really directing like how we could communicate certain aspects of what we were doing. And if that was in a video, and you guys have seen a lot of the videos, you've seen a lot of videos through Instagram. I post like almost exclusively the videos that Chad and the other photogs there in the 461st to put together, to be able to share. And I'll go off and say and I think it's tough sometimes to know who is in which mission that we did. Yeah. But Snap, I could have sworn, weren't you in the 9X mission?
I was, sorry.
Yeah.
I was in quite a few. I was thinking about those today as well. Some of those are very memorable as well.
Yeah. One of them, so I have to hit a point where I'm diving at the ocean at like 700 kcas. So I'm going like 800 miles an hour.
Yeah.
At 2,000 feet, I need to basically do a 9G brake turn.
Yeah.
And I need to shoot off a 9X missile. So at 2,000 feet, you're diving pretty like going towards the ocean. You need to do a 9G brake turn. And while you're holding 9Gs, you got to fire off this missile. And then I think you're on this one where I screwed it up actually, where I only pressed the pickle button for like 1 second instead of this one aircraft. You needed to press it for longer, just this one aircraft, this one test aircraft, because it needed to do something extra. And I didn't. Like, I'm so used to hitting the pickle button quick, and I hit it quick and let go, and the missile didn't come off. But like I had to divert to a Navy airfield, and there was all this thing. But the crazy thing for me was always, I'm sitting here trying to do this 2,000 foot 9G brake turn and press the pickle button, while the entire time Chad is off my wing at like 2,000 feet in another aircraft, having to hold up this camera at 9Gs.
Yeah.
Just imagine him in the back, like, because 9 times the force of gravity, right? So your 20-pound camera is very heavy, and trying to capture this data as he's like having to sit on my wing the entire time. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, we don't always give the photogs credit for, like, they have to actually hang with everything we're doing and then like frame a picture or a video.
Yes. That's funny. Well, that was... That would probably have been my second memorable stuff, was the 9X stuff, which are, as Cinco described with detail, that's exactly how it is. And I may add that, there's so much that the pilot is doing inside that cockpit, and sometimes they can give us a countdown, but it's only like, pickle in 3. You got to mentally go 3, 2, 1. The G's come on. You're trying to hold the camera, and there's luckily they don't record my audio, because there's a lot of times I'm screaming and cussing, and just like pickle, like go off. This is really not comfortable right now. But I do remember that, because it's disappointing too. It's like, oh man, like we didn't get it. It's kind of like you got to come back and do it again, in the future. But yeah, those are definitely one to keep in the pockets and think about, of how lucky we are to get to see the things we get to see and do the things we do with such great pilots as Cinco and so many other guys that do the mission for us. So
it's just funny, because you don't, like, as where Cinco said, obviously you're putting in 9 Gs holding a camera. Your automatic reaction isn't to think, hang on a second, that camera is all of a sudden 9 times heavier, isn't it, as such? You don't think about it, because there's times, obviously I know it's different, but there's times you can be holding a camera with a big lens for a few hours and you're there going, oh, my arms, what I mean? My shoulders are hurting a little bit, but 9 Gs, I dread to imagine how much effort it must take to. Chad, did that take a little while to get used to, or have you had to get used to it, or is it quite a rare occurrence then?
During that time, it was just, we did a lot where it was reoccurring almost weekly, right, Cinco? And it was just that particular, there was that particular program and another program that required some high G maneuvers. And so, it was definitely a built up to that time, but the first time we had to do it, I think my first reaction was, I was like, excuse me? Like, you want me to do what? In 9 Gs? Like, are you kidding me? And so, and as you go through the flights and stuff, you figure out like, I'm only going to carry 1 camera. I'm not going to hold 2 cameras up into 9 Gs, because it's absolutely impossible. So you figure out, and as you go, you figure out and you build the tolerance to the Gs. I mean, the more you pull Gs, the more your body is intolerance to those. So it's not as bad. And so you're really thinking about, to be honest with you, I mean, for me, I can't speak for any of my other, coworkers, is you're thinking about the shot, whatever it takes to get the shot within the safety perimeters, you do that. We have all of ours, it's all written in safety of how far we got to be close, and we try to maintain as best we can with our configurations and stuff. But as you go on, you figure out how you can hold the camera and little tools that you can to kind of press it against your body and get the shot. And it's a build-up process, to be honest with me. But when you haven't flown in 3 months and then they come tell you like, oh, we're going to go do a 6G pull, you're like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, I haven't flown in 3 months and you want me to do that? Like, that's not going to be very comfortable. So
it's really the beauty. It's the beauty of flight test, right? And that's why I think, as Chad was alluding to this speech that I gave, back in 2017, I'm sure it was a very genuine emotion that I was having. And I remember it because it is like, it is so amazing to me to think back about all the people that have impacted the F35 program in particular, like that moment. But flight test in general is just this huge team sport. Like it is such a unique skill set to be able to, and a needed skill set to test our aircraft. But that's the engineers developing test programs. That's our photogs. They're collecting data. That's our chase aircraft. That's our support aircraft. The list goes on and on. Each one of our missions with the instrumentation techs, they'd have to load up special pods that could collect the data correctly. You have maintainers that are like working on aircraft that don't even have tech orders yet, like trying to figure out like, how are we supposed to maintain this when this thing breaks? Because no one else has, figured that out yet. No one's had to deal with this before. When you get a program like that put together, we as a nation are asking a lot of a very small group of people that are delivering day in and day out to make sure that we're getting the capability that the taxpayer deserves and paid for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I can add on that too, Cinco, is the pressure that these people, that the team, I should say the team get from higher ups, especially on a program such as, the F35, that there's pressure constantly coming down. And I think from my perspective that I've seen, I think that the team, the outside world doesn't see that. They just see the end results. Like, oh, look what the pilot did. It's like, no, as Cinco alluded to, it's a large team of people who have this pressure to get it done, but they work, like they almost push the pressure to the side. Like, hey, we know what the mission is. We'll get the mission done. And the end result is this. And I think that needs to be pointed out as well. There's a lot of pressure that comes, especially as a commander who comes down, and he's kind of the shield to say, hey, we got it. We have a team. We'll execute this as safely as we can. We'll get the job done. And there's always, if we don't get it done today, there's always tomorrow that we can get it done. There's no rush to get it done and hurt, get somebody killed or something like that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, step back. So.
And to work together closely with contractors, right? Like we as a team at Edwards were contractors and government, civilians and military. And we never felt like it was an us versus them. It was always like, I didn't even know if people were contractors or working for the government as government civilians, because we had to approach it as one team, one fight. And I never plan on working for Lockheed Martin, so I feel like I can say this. I was thoroughly impressed with their act, because there are amazing people working for these companies that are not worried about the bottom line. They're worried about national security. They're worried about creating a product that is useful for all the partners. Right. Yeah. And that was really great. I really, really loved that aspect of it, because I think there's always a mentality like, oh, well, Lockheed Martin, they're just trying to, the bottom line, they're just trying to make their shareholders happy. Well, some people at Lockheed are, right. And that's kind of their job, because it's a company.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But most people are
corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, what we've been saying here is actually a very, very good segue into what our next question was, which again was for both of you. Which is basically, so what's the typical brief for shooting the F-35 from both a pilot and photographer's perspective? So, for example, are there limitations and things you can't do because it's such a modern airframe?
Well, I can talk about a quick brief. We probably can't get into too many specifics about like what you can and can't shoot, because there are things that we limit, right, on like getting out there, because it's a warplane, right? And we want to make sure that we don't that there's aspects of it that that are unknown, if you will.
Yeah, of course.
But in general, the briefing was if it required a photog, which during my time there was a lot of missions, we would usually prep with the photog before the brief, so days before, to talk about what the shot would look like and what data was needed. Okay. And then the day of brief was just typically a very long day of like 12 or 14 hours. You brief for about an hour to an hour and a half. You take about an hour to get out to the aircraft and get the aircraft started. And then the formation would take off and go fly like a 4-hour mission. And so, briefing that was just like, what are the test points? What are the test cards? What are the communication we're going to use? What's the go, no go for different for different requirements? Like, do we need both cameras? Do we need a video camera and the still photos? Yeah. And like, what about the weather? Does, are there certain requirements? Are there things that we have to be careful of, taking a photograph? I mean, some of it was silly. Like, we'd fly with a KC-46, but we couldn't take a picture necessarily of the KC-46 yet because it wasn't cleared. That was like bureaucratic. Yeah. You're not allowed to take a picture of that yet if you're part of this program. Yeah. So there's some of those things that you need to go through. Yeah, of course. But Chad, I don't know. What do you got to add?
I think I would add that, each mission was obviously different. If there was a photo required, we would go through the flow plan, as Cinco mentioned, basically prepping it, what's the requirements from us, and so forth, and how are we going to safely, effectively execute the test, the comm flow, what the should expect from the pilot and what his contract is to us, keeping everybody safe and moving forward. If it was just, that's for a data required flight, such as like the 9X or other assets being deployed off of the F35, is that. But when it comes down to more of a prof thing, it flows a little different.
Yeah.
On how we do it, but it's still, you still brief the card, how we're going to do it, how we're going to effectively execute the flight, and get the shots we can. And they added to, like, after these missions, after we do a 4-hour missions, they're given time that it's always like, hey, if we have an extra gas in 10 minutes, can you give me 10 minutes of your free time and try to get some PR shots? And that's where the communication with them too. So after 4 hours of a flight, we try to brief into some cards and execute those as well when time matters. So.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, Andrew. I'd love to highlight more. I don't think really ever went out the door with just being like, at the end of our mission, just take some pictures of me.
Okay.
Right? Like we briefed very specifically all the things that you see of me, like a photo over like a weird, disgusting, like looking pond. Right? Like we would brief, like, you're going to go, this is the card. You're going to go over this pond. You're going to be at this altitude. I'm going to be on your right wing. Or you're going to be with this other aircraft. You're going to do a cross under. It was all very scripted because we can't afford to just cowboy it up. Yeah. Right. And just hey, this is going to be great. Take a picture of me inverted while I'm like, it had to all be like approved. Yeah. There was a process to everything that we were doing, which is important. People don't realize how methodical, our life was.
Yeah. Cool. So it's almost like, what the shot looks like before you've taken it as such. Then you just need that evidence and that proof in the flesh then at that point.
Yeah, and it's more just having an essay. I mean, if you're trying to do it on the fly, like, everyone knows, like, hey, the boron mines, fly to the east corner, and I want you to do a 360. Well, you're trying to communicate between me and my pilot community, that's a no-no. I mean, that's how things get confused, and that's how you swap paints and people die. So there was, as Cinco said, if we could do it, it was always, hey, here's a card. This is the angle that I'm looking at. I will be directive and tell you what I need and where we need to go and do it. But at least he has a perspective, like, okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to turn. We're going to be chasing you. We're going to level off, knock it off, and move to the next card. So everything was well scripted out as best as possible, pushing forward. And before we walk out the door, everyone was on the same game plan. Going out the door, knowing what we're going to do from test to execution to RTB, and that's how it should work out. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people, I can add real quick. So a lot of people think, like, oh, you have such a great job, but people don't understand what it takes to get those shots, especially out at Edwards, where it's a flight test community, where we've got to, if we can get 5 minutes after a 4-hour mission to get something, that's the time that we have.
Yeah.
There's not too many times where we're going to be like, hey, we're going to launch an F35 and at 16, you guys are going to go out and do a photo op.
Yeah.
Those do happen, but it's very rare. So it's always like, hey, dude, you got 5 minutes. We got an RTB gas, right? And they're like, okay, cool. Oh, try to do something and walk away. Yeah. So,
I mean, with that being said, like, obviously, because it sounds as obviously it's very important, the whole build up, the brief, the making sure, obviously, the health and safety, making sure everyone knows. But even with that being said, even though you're following very, very strict, almost like a script, like you say, do you still both find that element of enjoyment in that? So even though it's pretty much, what you're doing, we need to do it like this, it must be done in this exact way and like that, do you still find yourself smiling at what you're doing?
I do a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had my times where I've had a split second going, this job sucks. But there was that split second when I look over and I'm either next to an F35, F22, and man, this is pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a part of a team of a very small team that gets to do what I get to do, and very honored. And there's many times you just walk away and it never gets old, to be honest with you. No matter what you do, it would be a hard thing to walk away from.
Yeah.
No, I like the question. It kind of makes me think of someone asked me recently, like, are you happy? And they're like, are you just in general happy? And I was like, well, that's such a funny emotion to be pursuing, because I think it's fleeting and it's distracting, and it's not about being happy, right? Like, I think of it more as, am I filled with a purpose? Is there joy in what I'm doing? And that joy doesn't always mean like happy elation. I would say, I was always extremely fulfilled, satisfied, and many times happy. But it was because we were doing something important, and we were doing it really well. And that was a sense of joy that is beyond happiness. So in general, I always felt very fulfilled, even though we weren't as spontaneous as people may imagine. You don't want to be spontaneous when you're flying at 800 miles an hour, right, close to the ground. You want to be scripted. You want to mitigate risk and be safe and effective and efficient. But it was so fulfilling because we were really good at what we did, and we knew it took all of us. It was like the Super Bowl every day, and we knew we were the team that needed to go accomplish it. And it was like super satisfying.
Well, because of course the thing is, regardless of what the mission is that day, like you say about being spontaneous, regardless of the mission, at the end of the day, you want to be able to walk home. You want to go home. So like you say, there may not be that much spontaneity in it, but at the end of the day, you get to go home without a scratch on you because it's been that well planned. Yeah,
exactly.
Awesome. So Cinco, we've got one for you personally now. So what plane did you not test pilot that you wish you had done, and why?
I mean, well, I would say I could even go to like, if space is in the realm here, right? Like Spaceship One, like that seems like it'd be awesome to test fly, develop, like the feather mechanism, and develop the process in order to safely take, customers up to the edges of space. That'd be pretty cool. And that's real. Like what Virgin Galactic has done is real test flying. Right? Like that is kind of like stick and rudder kind of stuff from the 70s and 60s, 50s. It's not autonomous, like Blue Origin's amazing. What they've done is cool, but it's all like an autonomous, you don't need a pilot or anything. So that type of work would have been really fun to be a part of. And I'm really proud of where that team is, gotten that platform right now.
Awesome.
It's amazing what they do.
Right. So Chad, we've got one for you. Obviously, we asked the joint question of most memorable experience working together. But for you personally, what's your favorite ever Lockheed photo shoot?
Again, there's a laundry list of them. And going, rambling through the Rolex, thinking about all that kind of stuff. And I would say, for me, it was an AIM-9X flight that we did. The pilot at the time, it was early in the program. It was quite, I wouldn't say it was, it was definitely risky, but he did a negative wings up kind of slice with a negative, like a negative 1 or 2 nose down dive. And for us to chase it, the chase had to come up on top. And I was basically looking down through him with the Pacific Ocean in the background. And it wasn't by any means, typically when we do something like that, we're within wing to wing, and we're trying to get the shot. But due to the difficulty of his maneuver, we had to get up there. And, I can't do my job unless I have a great pilot. My pilots make me get what I can. And if it wasn't for them, my job would be too hard. But it was all timing. It was perfect timing, and he ended up coming down. My pilot ended up basically holding up this way, looking down on it, and he launched the weapons and the audio. I remember my pilot and I just screaming like in joyfulness that we just captured that, and then we were just like, I can't believe we just got that.
Yeah.
And I remember we and it was classified at the time. It's been declassed, but I remember the video being shown to the weapons specialist at the time, and I remember him saying that was like one of the best videos he's ever seen of that particular weapon being released. And I think that was definitely a takeaway. It was like, man, that right there is why I do what I do, is to get that shot right there. And it was pretty dynamic. So at the end of the day, I couldn't do my job without the pilots that I fly with. And I never consider myself good. I just consider myself lucky, and it's the pilots who make me look good. That's how I would say that's probably one of my best. I mean, I've had a laundry list. I've done the last F-117 flight formation before they went detached. I've done tons of ground stuff, man. But yeah, that's one of those where every time I see the video or the photo, I just like, man, that was pretty dynamic. So yeah, I would take away with that.
Is that something that you've posted up before? Is that accessible? Or is that not visible to the public?
I've never posted it. No, I've never posted it before. I don't think I've posted the shot, but I think I have it somewhere. I could probably post it, and it's pretty dynamic. I shot video of it, so I had to do a video still, so it's not that great of a still, but it's still, you're looking down at it. Yeah. And you got this F-35 sky, blue water, and you're just like, how the heck did you get that shot? Yeah. It wasn't easy.
I'll tell you what, share. Yeah, if you are allowed to share that, we'd love to see that. That sounds epic.
Yeah, I can see what I can dig up. I got to dig it up, but I can share for sure on Instagram.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice one. Cheers.
Yep.
Right. So the final question that we've had, obviously from Instagram and things like that, goes to Cinco. So the question was, how do you adapt from being sort of, in want of a better word, a normal pilot to being a test pilot?
You train. It's a lot of preparation for those test missions. So to be a test pilot, you had to have flown for around 6 to 8 years as an operational pilot, combat ready pilot.
Yeah.
And then you get selected for test pilot school. You go through a year-long training. Then after that year-long training, you go through even more training to get totally spun up in your aircraft that you're going to test. Okay. And so it is, it's very different flying. I mean, it depends on kind of what missions you're doing, but it is different. You're working with a team. It's much more about how you work with people than it is about your own skill. Yeah. As a combat pilot, it's more about your own skill. And so it was something that they prepared us for through years of training.
Yeah.
And it is like, some pilots would find it boring, because there's some missions that are boring. Okay. I never found them boring. I always felt like there was something I could be evaluating or looking at, even when I was at times like doing, kind of circles in the sky, looking at one thing with my sensor, and they were just evaluating how the sensor was doing. I think if you're proactive, you can be fulfilled even in those moments. So I think it's just having a mindset that is all about the team, and a mindset that is all about, evaluating and trying to make the systems better. Yeah. And you'll be successful.
Okay. I mean, obviously, with that being said, this might be a silly question, but I'm not sure. So when you said, obviously, about going to the aircraft that you're going to be test piloting, did you get a choice where you wanted to? Did you choose F-35, or is that selected for you, or is it what's available?
Yeah, it's a little, you fly something before you go to test pilot school, and you're going to most likely test that airframe afterwards.
Yeah.
So I flew F-15s. I went to test pilot school. I tested F-15s.
Okay.
And then they the F-35 program, at least at the beginning, you had to be an experienced test pilot. So not just through test pilot school, but experienced test pilot to get pulled back into the program.
Right. Okay.
And so I got involved with the F-35 program office, and that allowed me to be competitive for leadership positions in the F-35.
Yeah.
So then I filled leadership positions, which is competitively selected, based on your rank and where you're at in your career.
Yeah.
And I got selected basically to be first the director of operations of F-35 for a year out at Edwards. So that meant I ran the operations for a year. And then I got selected again competitively to be the squadron commander. And then I led that effort for a few years. Okay. Yeah. So the F-35 is a little bit different because it was new, but you usually test whatever you flew beforehand.
Okay. Oh, all right. That's cool. One more I've just thought of as well, actually, and obviously feel free to answer or not, but it's one that I always find interesting, and I think everyone else does. So obviously your call sign, Cinco. Are we allowed to know where that's come from, or?
Well, I've definitely told some folks, it's out there, on podcasts, I guess, in the past.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mind telling this story, but it's a few minutes. So it's up to you guys if you want to hear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Snap, have you heard my call sign story before?
I don't think I have, but I'd be interested to hear. I might have. It's been 5, it's almost been 5-7 years. So
usually you just share your call sign story over like a beverage, but as indicated, I don't even drink.
It's funny. Sorry, just before it's funny you say that, because like I say, we spoke to an F-15 pilot whose call sign was Panic, and he literally said to us, because we asked the same question, and he said, usually you'd have to buy me a beer and I'd have to answer it over that. Because we're on different sides of the pond, we'll call it quits and you'll just owe me one. So maybe we'll do the same here, but we'll owe you a bottle of water.
Yeah, exactly. You owe me a drink of some sort.
That's it. Yeah.
Really good water. Okay. So we all get our call signs, a majority, because we do something stupid in the plane as a very young wingman. And then you get that call sign and that's with you for the rest of your career.
Okay.
Okay. So my call sign is Cinco, spelled like the Spanish number 5. So there I was, a brand new wingman. We were doing what we call offensive counter air. So I'm in my F-15C air-to-air fighter. I'm on my flight lead's wing, and we're going down into the battlefield airspace in a training mission. And our mission is to sweep out all the bad guys in front of us. The bad guys are just people from our squadron that are flying F-15s as well. They're just pretending to be bad guys that day. We call them Red Air. So they're our training aid. So we go down and we shoot our missiles, which is awesome. Do everything right. We turn sideways, which defeats missiles coming into us, and we turn back into the target area. And so I'm this aircraft, and you turn this way and you turn back in. This aircraft always gets stuck out of position. That's just like the physics of doing that maneuver. So right away, we turn back into the target area. My flight lead is like, 2, 1 is blind, pause it, which means I'm number 1, I'm blind. 2, tell me where you are, pause it. And I'm number 2. And I'm like, 1, I am visual with you. I see you, no problem. I'm at your left 7 o'clock, 5 miles, which means I'm at his left side, the 7 o'clock position. And I see him. So we should be good. I'm going to get back into position.
Yeah.
So I start rolling back in position, but I'm still wide at this point. And mind you, looking for an aircraft, like super, super tiny, the way that we fly in formation is not like Top Gun, where people are flying like where there's an aircraft like filling up your canopy. It's super, super tiny. So I get like 5 miles out, and he's like, 2, I still can't see you. Where are you at? I was like, 1, I'm at your left 9 o'clock now, 5 miles, bringing it in, which means I'm getting a little bit closer to him. So another 30 seconds goes by. He's like, 2, still can't see you. Now we're not spending all of our time looking at each other. We're doing the mission in front of us, looking for enemy aircraft. And he's like, 2, I still can't see. I'm like, 1, I'm at left 9 o'clock in position now with a flash, which just means like, oh, good. I'm where I need to be. I'm going to start flashing my wings. The Eagle is the size of a tennis court, nose to tail, wingtip to wingtip. So it's a big thing. Hard to see, easy to see. So we rock our wings. We call it with the flash, rocking our wings. So I start flashing my wings, and I get a little bit closer now because I could tell he still is having hard time seeing me. And he's like, 2, I don't see you. Bring it in closer. So I start getting in. He's starting to get upset on the radio.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get upset. Like, dude, I'm right here. And then I get off his wing at 3,000 feet. I am right there. Yeah. He's like, 2, I am blind. Where are you? Yeah. And I'm like, 1, I am right off your left wing at 3,000 feet with the flash flaring. And I start dropping my flares. I'm like lighting up the sky like fireworks, right? Like, moron, I'm right there. There's a pause on the radio. Two, are you flying off one of the bad guys we just killed out?
No.
And I look down and I have all this information right in front of me. I'm like 100 miles away from my flight lead.
Oh no.
Went to the target area, and when we turned sideways, I never turned back in. What I did was I saw one of the enemy aircraft that we killed out of the mission. They turned that way and started flying. So I'm flying the wrong way off Red Air's wing, getting closer and closer. And then I look down at the pilot in Red Air, and he's looking up at me, shaking his head because he hears the whole thing unfold. But he's not allowed to say anything because he's a training aide. You're not So he's like shaking his head, and I'm like, I'm out of position. So then I plug it into 5 stages of afterburner, which is as many stages as the engine for the F-15C has.
Right.
5 stages of afterburner to get back into position, because now we have to protect the target area for like 15 more minutes. So I race back, go as fast as I'm legally allowed to, which is very fast, very low to the water, and I rejoin on him right in time for us to kind of like protect this area. And don't you know, you fly around in 5 stages of AB, you go fast, but what else do?
You burn a lot of fuel.
Gas.
All your gas. I immediately am out of gas, and I have to RTB. So I was like airborne for like 5 minutes with him, basically went the wrong way, rejoined, and then I had to immediately get home because I was out of fuel. So they called me Cinco for flying around in 5 stages of AB for too long.
That's amazing. That is unreal. I'm a big fan of that. That is superb. But yeah, we definitely owe you a drink after that one for sure.
Oh man.
Oh, that is
hilarious.
Superb.
I have not heard that one, Cinco.
There you go.
It's such a funny, like there's a real lesson in there too that I'd love to share with people, right? Like the information was literally right in front of me of where my flight lead was. And I just was so enamored with what I was doing and thinking that I was right and focusing. Like I didn't take in the information that's at hand to make smart decisions. So like the lesson is like, take in the information that you have. That's right there. I would have never been out of position had I done that, right?
Wow. That's unreal. What a story. I'm such a fan of these stories. Like they're fantastic. Like they never disappoint. Like I was gripped through that whole thing. That is superb. And absolutely fantastic. But thank you.
Nice.
No, that's awesome. To be fair, with that being said, that's all of our questions for you guys. However, have either of you got any questions for myself, just, for us in general as a group, or have you got any questions for us at all?
No, I mean, I really appreciate you allowing us to chat. I mean, it's so fun to be able to hang out with Snap again. It's been too long. It's been over 2 years since I left the F35, but we've stayed in touch here and there, but it's really great to see him. So thank you guys for being the forcing function of us being able to reminisce about some amazing times together.
I mean, the pleasure and the honor is all ours. I was saying to you guys before, and as a group in our chat, we were saying about this before, just the fact that we're just a group of friends who enjoy taking photos of aircraft. Someone came up with the idea, how about we do, an aviation / photography podcast? And we've got the likes of yourselves on here giving us the time of day. Do you know what I mean? Like, at no point did I ever think that it'd be a Monday night. I've got work in the morning, but I'd be sat here chatting to you guys about some of the things we've spoken about. And it is simply superb, and it's not taken for granted. And it's not just myself. Obviously, it's AvgeeksAssemble, all of everyone behind the scenes as well. But yeah, just a massive thank you for joining us and giving us your time. It's really, really appreciated. It has been an absolute pleasure. And like I say, it has been an honor as well, because we do genuinely appreciate your time. And that just about gets us back to base after another flight. So we hope you both enjoyed it and there wasn't too much turbulence. Before we go, what we will do, we'll go around and so that people can find yourselves on social media if you wish to. So if you've got Instagrams or Facebook pages that you're happy for people to follow, obviously feel free to share those now. So Chad, for example, have you got any Facebook, Instagrams that public?
Yeah, you can look up either my name, Chad Blay, or Studio 64 Productions, I think on Instagram. I think is what I've changed it to now.
Okay.
And the same thing with Facebook, it's Studio 64 Productions.
Awesome. Cinco, yourself?
Yeah, just Instagram at Cinco Hamilton.
Cinco Hamilton. Nice one. Awesome. And obviously myself, Afterburner Aviation on Instagram and Facebook. The main group as well, AvgeeksAssemble, which is on both Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, like I say, guys, thank you so much for joining us for episode 16 of the AvgeeksAssemble podcast. We hope you've all enjoyed it as much as we did. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you guys. But for those of you listening, please drop us a DM on Instagram or join the Facebook group if you want to give us any feedback. So yeah, thanks again to this week's guests, Cinco and Chad. We definitely look forward to seeing your amazing work through Instagram in the future.